All right, good morning, everybody. It's been a while. And I woke up this morning and I said to myself, I got an interesting idea, an interesting topic to do a show on today. And I want to review the first quarter of the year for boxing, right? I want to look at all the promoters, all the fighters, all the fights, the platforms, the networks. And I want to just give my opinion, my review, my assessment on the current state of the game in boxing. I want to give you guys the good, the bad, and the ugly from my vantage point that I see in the sport today, and if it's headed in a right direction, right? So let's talk about the schedule and the upcoming fights. And let's talk about if we're getting value for our dollar. Let's talk about who's giving us the most value for our dollar. And let's also talk about overall, is boxing headed in the right direction? Are they putting themselves in a position to grow the sport, at least in the United States? And I know a lot of people say, oh, all these Americans, all they care about is fights in the United States. And if boxing's big in the United States and they don't care about the rest of the world, okay, I understand that argument. And we're not trying to be xenophobic here, but the reality of the situation is the largest market in the world is in the United States, right? So when you look at highest grossing fights of all time, they've always been in the United States, right? You look at the highest paid boxer in the world right now, where does he fight? He fights in the United States. And the highest grossing pay-per-views last year, where were they all held? In the United States. Now, does that mean United States has been consistent? Does that mean United States has created a lot of new stars? Does that mean United States has given the fans the most bang for the buck? That's something that you have to decide. I question that, right? I'm not saying they have, and I think there's still a lot of work to be done in the United States. But at the end of the day, the biggest fights and the biggest fighters and the highest earning fighters, more often than not, have fought in the United States, right? So let's look at Top Rank and let's look what they've done, what they've given us, and what they're going to be giving us. And as I said last year, and I'm going to repeat it this year, Top Rank has given us the most bang for our buck. They've been the most consistent. Obviously, you have to pay for an ESPN Plus subscription to get some of these fights, which is the cheapest of all the platforms, subscription price. I mean, if you want to throw Peacock in there, but again, I don't think it's fair to throw Peacock in there because they're not really giving you the amount of fights that ESPN and DAZN are giving you. So I don't think it's a fair comparison. I think they just dip their toes into the water. So I'm not going to really count them in terms of being a true boxing platform, right? So again, when you look at ESPN, what they've given us thus far this year and what they're going to be giving us, and when you factor in that, yeah, you're paying for an ESPN Plus membership, and obviously you get ESPN if you have a cable package or if you have a IPTV package, you usually get ESPN in your package, and through that route, you do get fights there as well. So in terms of cost, value, and overall quality, once again, in my opinion, ESPN is by far knocking it out of the park, right? So let's take a look at what we got coming up. Now we got Jared Big Baby Anderson coming up, fighting against Mary tonight, which is okay. It's a okay fight, not a great fight, not but it's a decent fight, and that's going to be on regular ESPN, so you don't really have to pay for it, right? Most people already have ESPN in their regular cable package, so that's not a problem, right? That's tonight. Then May 6th, you got Naomi Inoue versus Neary, and that's going to be on ESPN Plus. You got Lomachenko versus Kambosos. That's going to be on regular ESPN. Okay, so Inoue Neary is a good fight. Lomachenko Kambosos is an okay fight. It's a decent fight, not a great fight, but it's a okay fight, but again, you're not paying pay-per-view for it, right? You're not having to pay $20 a month for a subscription to watch it. So again, once again, bang for a buck. Um, Now Fury versus Usyk is going to be on the Zone, but it hasn't been determined yet if you're going to be able to purchase it from ESPN Plus as well. I'm suspecting, and again, this is my opinion. If I'm going off of the past, I do think you may be able to buy that pay per view on ESPN Plus if you live in the United States. But I could be wrong, but that's just my opinion. And I don't think anyone's going to complain about having to pay a pay per view price for that fight. That fight definitely speaks and sells itself, in my opinion. I think most would agree. So let's take a look at. We have May 18th on ESPN. We got Navarrete versus Berenchek. Again, not a awesome fight, but you're not paying for it. It's on regular ESPN. And this is kind of a head scratcher. I'm surprised at this. Jack Catterall versus Josh Taylor is going to be on DAZN in the UK, but in America, if you want to watch this, this is going to be on ESPN Plus. Once again, ESPN Plus, cheapest subscription price out of all the platforms, not a problem. So let's take a look at some of these past events that we've had. The Valdez versus Wilson card, which was on ESPN Plus, great card, right? Raymond Ford versus Kolmatov, that was another great card. Santiago versus Nakatani, Inoue versus Anakajas. That was a great card, ESPN Plus. So all these fights have been on ESPN or ESPN Plus. Abraham Nova versus Oshaki Foster, very good fight. Teofimo Lopez versus Jermaine Ortiz, not the greatest fight, but on paper it was a good matchup, right? It was a good matchup. It was in a somewhat intriguing matchup, right? And then you had Tasha Jonas versus Michaela Mayer. That was on ESPN Plus. So, they're hitting it out of the park. And we're going to have Beterbiev versus Smith, an undisputed light heavyweight title fight that we've all been clamoring for. Maybe not the two biggest names in the sport, but a lot of diehards are really looking forward to this fight. And that is going to be on ESPN Plus, I believe. It's going to be on regular. It's going to be on regular ESPN. Excuse me. All right. It's going to be on regular ESPN. Okay. So I'm sorry. That's the old, that was the Beterbiev versus Caleb Smith I'm looking at. I apologize. So that was an ESPN Plus fight as well, that was a good fight, free fight. I apologize for that. But I do believe the Beterbiev versus Bivol fight is going to be on ESPN or ESPN Plus from what I've been hearing. So you're not going to pay for that. So I don't know why I got confused there. Got a little sidetracked. I apologize. So that was another great fight that you got for free. Inoue versus Topalis. That was a great fight as well. Decent fight, yeah. And Ramirez versus Espinosa, ESPN Plus. So these are all great fights, or solid fights, not great fights. They're all good fights. And you didn't have to pay a ton of money to watch these fights, in my opinion. So I do think that overall ESPN had, really given us the most bang for our buck. And now let's kind of look at the zone where you do pay almost double, pretty much double what you pay for ESPN Plus, right? And you still have to pay for pay-per-views as well. And let's look what they have coming up and what they've been giving us. So we had that Eric Bazinian versus Shaquille Finn super middleweights. That's actually on ESPN Plus. So they're putting ESPN Plus fights on their schedule as well. So okay, and then they have the Jared. Okay, I'm sorry. So today I believe Jordan Gill versus Zulfa Barrett. All right, that's going to be on DAZN today. That's a pretty decent fight. I think it's a decent fight. Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia is going to be a DAZN pay-per-view. Manny Pacquiao is going to be in an exhibition on April 20th on DAZN. Jonas Tales versus Joseph Jackson. That's a DAZN fight as well, April 26th. Ja Rico O'Quinn versus Peter McGrill versus on April 27th is a DAZN fight. Jose Ramirez versus Rancis Bartholomew. Virgil Ortiz versus Thomas Delorme. Not great fights in my opinion. Is that worth the $20? Or some people have to pay $30 a month if they're not signed up for the reoccurring monthly charge. So is that worth $30 a month? I don't know, man. Then you got another fight on April 27th. Maria Guadalupe Bautista versus Sarah Hyatt Jew for Boatsi's WA Women's Junior Featherweight. Yeah, see, again, so these aren't earth-shattering fights, and to pay $20, $30 a month for them, I just don't think it's worth it, right? And Saul Canelo Alvarez versus Jaime Munguia for the undisputed titles, right? It's a good fight, but again, it's going to be on Amazon Prime. Probably going to have to pay $70, $80 for that. And if on DAZN, if you're a subscriber, you're going to pay probably $60 for that on top of your $20 a month charge. So again, I don't hate the fight. You can argue whether or not you think it's worth the pay-per-view price. I think it's a good fight. I'm not 100% sure. I think it's pay-per-view worthy, in my opinion. Right? So, yeah, you just go down the list here. Rocky Hernandez versus Daniel Lugo. Erica Cruz versus Nazarian Romero. Then you got Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk, obviously on pay-per-view. Yeah, another ESPN Plus card is Christian and Billy versus Mark Heffron, super middleweight. That's an ESPN Plus card. So Super Matias versus Liam Paro, June 15th. That's a solid card. And you got Juan Francisco Estrada versus Bam Rodriguez, June 29th. That's a very solid card. And it says here that Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson is going to be on DAZN. I thought it was going to be on Netflix. So we'll see. So there's only really two fights here, and the pay-per-view fight with Canelo is decent. It's a good fight. It's a really good fight, but I don't know if it's worth the pay-per-view price. But in terms of just the fights you get with your subscription, Matias versus Paro and Estrada versus Rodriguez. Other than that, Zelfa Barrett versus Jordan Gill, that's a pretty good fight. But again, if you're an American fight fan, are these the fights that you're really clamoring for, that you're getting excited for? And again, you Americans, all you care about is America. Okay, but again, if you want to make a statement in the American market, you want to get American subscriptions, then you're going to have to move the needle in the American market. And DAZN has not done that, right? Everyone wants to criticize other promotional companies about how if they're making money, if they're generating a profit, this with all this bullshit, but you have to ask yourself, when you really look at boxing across the board and you look at the platforms that boxing is on, boxing is a niche sport. It's always been, for the last 20, 30 years, at least the last 20 years, boxing has become a niche sport, right? And it's basically, when you look at ESPN, DAZN, and these other sports platforms, it's filler content. It's 24/7, 365, right? It's basically filler content. No platform is using boxing as its staple. It's not its highest earning piece of content in comparison to other sports. Like for Amazon right now, they're just waiting for football season to start, and boxing is the filler content. Same thing with DAZN. DAZN makes money in other countries off the NFL and soccer. So if you guys want to talk about boxing, and I know the diehards get mad when I say this, boxing is not the holy grail for these sports platforms or any of these platforms, channels, whatever the case may be. It's filler content for the most part. Okay, ESPN's got deals with the NBA. They do a lot of NCAA games. They're not living in, none of these platforms are living and dying off of boxing. Now, in the UK, boxing is much bigger. I know Sky does very well. And maybe the DAZN numbers in the UK, I don't know how good they are, but I know that the DAZN numbers in America, I know anecdotally, I know about 10 or 12 people that canceled their DAZN subscription. So I'm sure if someone else knows 10 or 12 people and someone else knows 10 or 12 people, I just don't believe, and this is anecdotal, I just don't believe that the zone has really achieved what they wanted to achieve in terms of boxing in the United States market, right? And I know people love to criticize PBC and all this and that, and I get it. There's a lot of things to criticize PBC about. They put fights on pay-per-view that most people don't think are pay-per-view worthy. They do that a lot. They have too many pay-per-views. They don't have enough fights. They don't keep their fighters active. They don't do well, or they're unwilling, right? They're unwilling to do shows with other promotional companies. Now, they'll do it every now and then, but they have been the most resistant towards it, right? So that these are all, criticisms that are warranted. There's no question about it. No one's saying that PBC has a great business model in terms of for the fans. It's really not. They really don't have a great business model for the fans. If you're a fan of boxing, PBC has really not done you well. And it's out of the three of them, the bang for buck, they're the worst. There's no question about it. But the reality of the situation is, regardless of how you feel about PBC, when you start saying things that are just ridiculous, and you start reinventing things, and you start reinventing words, and you start just saying things that are factually and categorically false and untrue, then what you do is you weaken your argument. You kill your own argument by saying things that aren't true. Like I've said before, Chris Rock said this once. He says, they asked him, how did Trump get elected? He said, well, you know what? If someone goes out and kills 9 people, you don't have to lie and say they killed 10. So stick to the criticisms that are valid and that are real and that are factual, that you can actually go back and say, hey, this is true. But when you start saying things that are categorically false, like PBC has no money when they just signed a rights agreement with Amazon for 1.7, Amazon is a $1.7 trillion company. So at least for the next year or so, or 2 years, or for the next 2 or 3 years, they have a budget until Amazon decides not to give them a budget anymore after their rights agreement is over, right? Oh, it's a distribution deal. Here's the problem when you make statements about, distribution deals. Do you know what a distribution deal is? Because I think a lot of you are confusing a distribution deal with a time buy agreement. And a distribution deal is actually better than a rights agreement. So once again, you're killing your own argument. A distribution deal is when a company is paying you for production, they're paying your distribution costs, and they're paying the salaries of your employees, right? But you get to keep all your content, and you can put your content wherever you want. So you're not giving that company exclusivity, right? They're only paying to distribute your product without owning the rights to it, right? So like in music, if you have a distribution deal with a record company, they don't own your masters. You own your masters, right? So when you go on Amazon's website, you already see PBC content on there, archived, new and archived. So they gave PBC a budget. They paid for the rights to show and own the rights to their material and product. So when you say things, make sure you understand what you're saying. So when you say it's a distribution deal, that doesn't mean that they're not getting a budget. A distribution deal is what I just explained. You're getting a budget without giving them exclusivity and without them owning the rights to your content. It's that simple. Just like when Floyd was working with Golden Boy, right? A lot of those fights were being promoted by Golden Boy. And Golden Boy signed a rights agreement with DAZN, okay, for their new and archived content. When you go on DAZN, all those Floyd Mayweather fights, Oscar De La Hoya, fucking Victor Ortiz, you know, Miguel Cotto, all those fights, right, are on the DAZN archive. You can watch them on DAZN because Oscar De La Hoya promoted those fights. He was the lead promoter of those fights. And he signed a rights agreement with DAZN. So again, understand what you're saying. Canelo Alvarez is the highest paid fighter in the sport. And the reason why PBC is paying him this the purse for this fight is because they outbid Eddie Hearn and DAZN. So once again, Amazon has a bigger piggy bank than DAZN does. That's just reality. So this whole thing that PBC doesn't have the money to pay Canelo when they signed a rights agreement with a $1 trillion company, you're killing your own argument when you say things like that. Stick with the facts. Stick with the facts that PBC doesn't do a good job of keeping their fighters active. Stick with all the facts. Stick with the facts that they're not great at building stars. Stick with the facts. Stick with the facts that they don't give you the fights that you want. Just stick with the facts. When you start deviating from the facts, you start weakening your argument and you're giving the other side ammunition to criticize you. Stick with the facts. One thing Al Heyman is good at is he knows how to get people to invest in him. He's good at marshaling resources. Whether you love or hate him, you got to give him credit for that. Right? And I said this to Calix once. Calix was like, oh, yeah, not Calix. I'm not picking on Calix because a lot of people said this. Oh, they bankrupt every network they go to. I mean, they were with Showtime for 10 years. So that's longer than some marriages last. That's number one. Number two, it's almost like this guy. You have a guy, right? He gets married and divorced a lot of times, right? And then the criticism could be, oh, this guy can't hold on to a wife, right? But then the counter argument to that is, well, if this guy is such a bad guy, then why is he able to constantly get these fine-looking women that want to marry him? He's got to have something, right? So Al Heyman has something that companies and broadcasters and platforms, they find it a viable product. So he has a product that platforms and networks and companies find valuable. So we just got to tell the truth. That's the reality of the situation. How you doing, Mr. Eric?
Eric is doing great. I'm Eric in the mornings. I'm T-Style at night. So
Yeah.
I'm just chilling, man. Just listening. I'm actually off on a Saturday morning, which is rare for me, but here I am. Yeah. Just chilling. Well, is that 7-Up or Sprite? Is what I want to know.
It's a Sprite Zero.
Oh, you switch teams.
It's the same as my IQ. Zero.
Oh, come on. No, but what happened to 7? There was no 7-Up or what? What's going on?
I actually like the taste of it. This is the beauty of Instacart. The 7-Up Zero was out of stock one day, and I got this, and I got this as a replacement product.
Uh-huh.
I drank it, and I actually like this a little bit better.
There's no way.
But I can never switch from the diet caffeine Pepsi, caffeine-free Pepsi. I can never switch away from that because that's nice and sweet.
I gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I like both, but not too. Everyone is probably confused about what the hell we're even talking about. But look, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I think a lot of people are, in my opinion, judging this whole PBC thing based off of their own personal dislike for PBC, and I actually share a lot of the dislike for PBC. But we
Myself
also
as
have
well.
to,
Myself as well.
but we have to assess things for what they are. Like at the moment, fighters like Canelo, for example, and you gave the example, and the reason he's on PBC right now, it's not because Canelo likes their logo or because he wants to be part of Team PBC or because he cares what we're talking about online or he's not doing it because he loves the history of Al Heyman. Like, there's one reason Canelo's doing this. Like, it comes at the bottom line, which is money. And they're the ones that offered him the most money. That they're just in that position right now. Now, could we argue, hey, they're pouring out the war chest for Canelo, and they don't. That's why we've seen this is going to be the second event in a whole year. Can you argue it's kind of hurting other fighters like a Boots Ennis, which is why he left? You could argue that, but for Canelo himself, at the moment, they're the ones offering him the most money, and that's why he's there. He's going to go wherever they offer him the most money. So, anyone who wants to say they got no money, how the hell is a broke dude going to outbid Eddie Hearn?
I mean, you're paying the highest paid fighter in the sport his purse. You have the highest paid fighter in the sport. That would be like, someone calling Jeff Bezos broke. That doesn't make sense.
Right.
So, and the problem with what they're doing with Canelo, potentially, at least it shows right now in this card, is I think the undercard's not the greatest. You and I disagree on that. But because the undercard isn't the greatest, the reason being is because of Canelo's purse. They're paying the main event fighters an exorbitant amount of money, and there's really not a ton left to pay the undercard. And that's another
especially
criticism.
Canelo, right?
Yeah, and that's another criticism. And here's something else people aren't looking at. How the fuck is DAZN going to pay AJ and Canelo at the same time? Because AJ's arguably probably at least maybe the third behind. I think you got Canelo. I think you got Fury. Then AJ's probably the third highest, but he's not probably not that far behind Fury. I'm talking about recent years. I mean, obviously overall he's made more money than Fury overall because he's been more consistent and been in bigger fights overall. But in recent years, Fury's is making a lot of money. He's going to be making a lot of money. So how could you pay Canelo and Joshua at the same time? Did anyone ever think of that? And when you look at DAZN, and again, this is not a DAZN bashing session, but we're going to speak in reality. They actually refused to pay Canelo the guaranteed purse that they agreed to in their first agreement, and they had to restructure the deal. They had to restructure Golovkin's deal, and Golovkin has come out and spoke out against them and criticized them as well before too. So again, we're just going to deal in facts because a lot of the stuff people are saying about PBC in terms of money, it's already played out in front of us from DAZN side. Like,
yeah,
Canelo sued them, and in that lawsuit, it said they did not pay him the guarantee that they agreed upon, and they had to settle out of court, and they had to restructure a deal, and that's when Canelo went fight to fight with them as well. He went fight to fight with them as well. And the reason, how could he have gone fight to fight with them? No, he had a deal. No, he didn't have a deal with them because if he had a deal with them, he wouldn't have been able to fight Plant over in Showtime. So once again, this is how Canelo moves. Canelo's not going to go out there and fight people's personal battles for them and adopt their beefs and go on social media and hear what you guys are saying about PBC and then all of a sudden say, oh, fuck PBC. No, he's going to go where the money is. He's going to get the best deal for himself. And this has been the motto all along with Canelo. He signed a long-term deal with them. They couldn't pay him what they agreed upon, or they chose not to. I'm not saying they couldn't. They chose not to. And then he went fight to fight. Similar thing that's happening here. He didn't like the long-term agreement. They settled out, and now he's fight to fight with them. It's the same fucking thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, Canelo's doing what we all do, just at a much higher scale. Like, he's going to go where they're going to pay him the most money. That's it. It's not personal. It's not like I don't even believe the rumor about, oh, he said something to Reynoso, Eddie did, and that's the reason they stopped doing business. Like, they don't, bro. Like, they're gonna go where there's more money. That's it. Like, it's really that simple. Reynoso's gonna give, as his manager's gonna get Canelo the best deal for Canelo because he gets a cut out of Canelo's purse too. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm sure a lot of it because they're good friends and he's known him his whole life. But guess what? Reynoso's getting a cut, right? So they're gonna go where the most money is. That's it. It's as simple as that. Canelo doesn't care that we don't like the fact that, like, if somebody were to tell Canelo, right? Let's say I were to tell him, it's Canelo, like, I love to watch you fight, man, but I really wish you weren't with PBC. Like he's gonna look at me like, I mean, you want to watch me fight? Well, why does it matter? Like, you know what I mean?
What does it make? Who's holding the camera? Is that going to have any? Is that going to have any effect on the outcome of the fight or the performance of the fight?
Oh, because I don't like Al Heyman is bad for the sport, Canelo. I think you should leave. I think you should go. Like, he's like, I'm not going to lose $10 million because you don't like Al Heyman. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's, I mean, come on, bro.
And again, I mean, they have no fights. They gave us one card.
Yeah,
I liked the fight, but it still wasn't a pay-per-view fight in my opinion. And I like Tim Tszyu. I like Sebastian Fundora. I enjoyed the whole card from top to bottom. But again, I've enjoyed other cards that I didn't have to pay. Well, that didn't cost $70, right? There's been just as good cards from Top Rank that didn't cost $70. Like, that Valdez card was a solid card.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to pay for that, right?
Yeah.
How much different was the Valdez card in comparison to the Tim Tszyu card in terms of quality? I think both cards were comparable. They were both good cards, right? So again,
very true. Now I do want to. I was thinking about this, right, and I'm not excusing Al Heyman's track record. I think he has a terrible, we want to call it, credit rating. But is the credit rating like a 400 or is it more like a 600? And let me explain what I mean by that. So I was thinking about it. So the Showtime thing. Did Al Heyman and PBC destroy Showtime? Or was Showtime going to go out of business regardless because there was a merger out of Showtime's control that happened with their parent company, with Paramount, right? And was it going to go away anyway, regardless of how successful boxing was for the last? We just don't know that because there was a merger. Like, there was a merger with Time Warner. Like, I compared it to these two things. One of them's boxing related, one's not. But the one that's not is, but it's similar, is when Time Warner did a merger with AOL, and the new parent company, AOL, said, we don't want wrestling and we don't want to associate ourselves with wrestling, right? And people will always say, oh, WCW was failing and that's why they got rid of it. No, they got rid of it because they didn't think it was family friendly, right? WCW, while they weren't doing WWF numbers, they were still doing like 5 million viewers every Monday, right? They were still successful in that sense when it comes to the ratings. But nonetheless, they got rid of it. And then the other one is HBO. HBO, I just saw the lawyer right now. Oh, Al Heyman, he did this, he did that. Al Heyman had nothing to do with the HBO thing. Al Heyman wasn't around when HBO got rid of boxing. But there was a merger. The new parent company, AT&T, just had a vision that did not include boxing. This was right after, very similar, people. They just had a big, pay-per-views with Golovkin and Canelo, and people thought like, oh, look at the gate they just did. They did over 1 million. They can't get rid of boxing, and they got rid of it. Right? Well, was that Golden Boy's fault?
Is that Golden Boy or Top Rank? Top Rank was there too.
Yeah.
Did Top Rank and Golden Boy bankrupt HBO boxing? So
and I remember the narratives like, oh, they killed HBO, and it's like, no, it's more complicated than that, and it's bigger than that. By that I mean, it was really not on. No boxing promoter or executive had any power. We're not in a position of power to dictate what happens to the boxing programming, right? Because boxing is a little speck in a big world of entertainment. You know what I mean? I think what happened with Showtime is closer to that than anything. It just, in my opinion. But people want to say, like, I guess on paper, PBC was with Showtime when Showtime went away, so I guess they get to say that. But what if Top Rank was the ones working with Showtime, or if Golden Boy was, or Matchroom? It might have gone away anyway. I don't think it mattered who the promoter was, quite frankly.
I think it was going away regardless. I think it was going away regardless.
And then, they were on ESPN. Well, maybe ESPN decided, hey, we want to work. They didn't get rid of boxing. They signed an exclusive contract with Top Rank. So they started working with Top Rank. So was it that Al Heyman didn't kill boxing on ESPN? You still see it with Top Rank.
Yeah.
Right? It's Spike TV. Is Spike TV still around, babe?
I don't think so. No.
Spike TV is not even around. It's defunct. It doesn't exist anymore. So, he killed boxing on Spike TV. Well, it doesn't exist anymore. Bounce TV. Who watches Bounce TV? I don't. Is that like a UK thing?
No, they still have Bounce TV on certain
cable
packages. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, did he kill it on Bounce TV, or did they just stop working with Bounce TV? I mean, I'd like to know more about that. Like,
those were all time buys, and the money did run out with the time buy, and then he just kept the Showtime and the Foxdale after that.
Yeah. CBS. Well, CBS is the parent company of Showtime. They stayed with Showtime for a while, for 10 years. So there's just a lot of ways to look at it. Obviously, because they did time buys, I think people are assuming this Amazon thing is a time buy. You know what I mean? That's the assumption people are making. But I think even Al Heyman learned otherwise now.
I mean, again, when they say distribution deal, they don't even know what a distribution deal is. If they say that, if they believe that in a distribution deal, you're not getting money.
Yeah.
So I already explained that earlier on in the video. So
people go back if they can just come in for sure.
But that's the thing. And the whole thing with Canelo, again, he can do whatever he wants. We already talked about that too. You're going to run out of opponents. People are going to lose interest. You can only fight a certain type of fighter for so long, and then the fans lose interest. And then people are like, oh, well, what has David done to deserve the fight? Well, okay, then what has Munguia done to deserve the fight? What has David Morrell done to deserve the fight? What does anyone like Caleb Plant? None of these guys have cleaned out the division. So the argument you use with David, you can use with any other Canelo opponent. So then, again, you kill your own argument when you say things like that, because then the question gets flipped back at you. Well, what has this guy done? Well, what has that guy done? And you can argue that Caleb, Demetrius Andrade are better fighters than Sergey Derevyanchenko and John Ryder. So what has Munguia done to get this fight? And again, I'm not begrudging him for getting the fight. So again, don't create an argument. Like, since when in the sport of boxing have people ever said that they do not want number one to fight number two? We just can't create these standards and these beliefs and these unwritten rules when it's convenient for us as fans. So if that's the case, then why should Fury fight Usyk? He doesn't need to fight Usyk. Why is he fighting Usyk? Why don't you use that argument with that situation?
Right.
So again, you got to be consistent. You can't kill your own argument when you're saying things and you're making statements that contradict your own beliefs. So again, when is it cool to have number one not fight number two? I thought you guys wanted the best versus the best. And the problem too is this. There's 4 belts out there. So of course everyone's going to want to fight him if they want to become a champion. All roads lead to him at this point. They lead to him. Oh, well, why doesn't David just go up to 175? Why? Why can't he stay at 160? Like Why do you care what division David Benavidez fights in? That's his choice, not yours. Why didn't Canelo stay at 175 when he went up there? He fought twice up there. Why didn't he stay up there? Because he wanted to go back down to 168.
How far do we go with this? With a lot of this, like a lot of these things, to me. First, anybody saying that Benavidez still needs to earn it, and I think first of all, have a fundamental misunderstanding how boxing really works is number one. Because if we're honest, most of these fights we see, Beeb, right? Does somebody earn these positions? I mean, I think in most cases they don't. You know what I mean? Quite frankly.
Yeah, and here's the thing, man. It's not what you deserve. It's what you can negotiate, right? Working, but wanted to support. Will watch the replay. Thank you so much, George.
Shout out to you, brother.
Always a pleasure, man. Great to have you. Yeah, that's the thing, man. Like this, it's like, what's the criteria for earning? Isn't he isn't he in the mandatory slot?
Now, because you can. So now you could label earn whatever you wanted to label it.
So now, well, everyone has a different criteria for earn. It's with everything in life. Like, what have you done to earn this? What have you done to earn that? People who are successful, there's many people who will criticize successful people and say, well, this guy doesn't deserve this. This guy doesn't deserve that. What has this guy done to get this? What is this guy? Who did he know? Who does he know? Who got him the job? Who set him up? How did he get the deal? And like everybody can use these arguments in anything in life if they don't like a specific person. So the guy's in the mandatory slot, and he was the number one contender. He's a two-time former champion in the division. Oh, well, he never cleaned out the division. Why didn't he? No one outside of Canelo ever cleaned out this division. Even Andre Wood never cleaned out he was never undisputed. No one's ever cleaned out this division except for Canelo. So if that is the standard for David, then it's got to be the standard for everybody else. So if David has to clean out the division in order to get in a fight with Canelo, so does Munguia, so does Caleb Plant, so does David Morrell, so does Christian Mbili, so does Diego Pacheco. All of them do. John Ryder didn't have to clean out the division. Caleb Smith didn't have to clean out the division. Billy Joe Saunders didn't have to clean out the division. So again, have that same standard for everybody else, not just David Benavidez. But David Benavidez is affiliated with the PBC. You don't like PBC, so David Benavidez is guilty by association. Is that orange? Oh, it's cherry? Okay. I got to get one of those.
They're great. It'll get you back on the right team, by the way.
I like the cherry one. I've had the cherry before. It's good. So yeah, so you gotta be consistent with your standards and your criteria. If David's got to go through the gauntlet, he's got to win a Super 6 to get Canelo. So does Caleb. So should have Caleb Plant. So should have Billy Joe Saunders. So should have Caleb Smith. You know.
I just have me, I'm a fight fan, babe. Like, I just want to see this fight. It's like, I have a why not mentality. Like, if somebody's arguing to me, why Benavidez shouldn't fight Canelo, to me, it's like, why not? Why don't you want to see this fight?
And if you say, why should the fight happen, then you can't say that you want to see the fight and then at the same token question why should it happen. You can't. Again, you stop killing your own argument. Stop contradicting yourself. Stop. If you want something to happen, you would support it and build it instead of tear it down. Why tear something down that you want? Maybe you really don't want it. Maybe you want to let people believe you want it, but maybe you don't really want it. Right? That's the thing. Do you really want it? That's what I need to know. Because it doesn't sound like you do.
Yeah. 100%. To me, I could tell somebody, right? Look, I'm happy with him beating Plant. That was a rivalry. Plant's a top 5, easy top 4, in my opinion. You could make an argument Plant's number 3 because people keep saying Morrell, but I'm not positive Morale beats Plant. Like, I would have to see to know. But either way, it's a top 5 guy.
My opinion, and this is my opinion, it's debatable. I think Caleb Plant's the third best fighter in the division behind David.
Yeah,
I do. I really do. That's just my opinion.
yes. So that he's beating one of the top guys, and then people try. It's like by trying to, like, I've heard people do this, Joe. They'll be like, "Well, I'm not impressed. Who the hell's Plant? Like, Plant got knocked out by Canelo. Like, well, then you're shading on Canelo because you know. So it's a bad thing if Canelo knocks you out. Does that make you a bum or what? Like, what does that even mean?
If you were to ask everybody to give their top 10 fighters in the super middleweight division, if you go to any rankings, you can go to the TransUnion rankings, you can go to the Ring rankings, you can go to the BoxRec rankings, you can go to the sanctioning body rankings, right? Like every publication, every organization, every ratings committee has David at number 2. It's not even an argument. And most people, if you ask, give me your top 5, they would have David at number 2.
Yeah.
So
I do.
Again, stop killing your own argument. Stop contradicting yourself. Like, stop talking out of both sides of your mouth. Oh, fuck David. Fuck David. He's begging for the fight. Blah, 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 blah. Again, everyone does that. When the guy has all the belts, everybody wants to fight him. When the guy's the money man, everybody wants to fight him. Like, if you were in David's position, you wouldn't be wanting to fight him either. I mean, let's just be real. Let's be honest. Let's be honest.
It's like a weird era, and it goes beyond just this situation, just in general. This whole like when Fulton basically went out him and look, I want to fight in a way. That's what I want to do. I don't want to go up and wait if I figure I want a rematch, and I want to fight in a way. I want to fight for. I want to do that unification fight. I want to prove I'm the best in 122, and I want to. Obviously, we all know, right? He also wanted the money, of course, right? But then people just downplayed it by just like I don't know what it is. Like, oh well, of course he wants to go over there. He's going to get $3-4 million. That's why he's going over there. Okay.
And then the argument, and the criticism being thrown at Boots Ennis for going over to Matchroom. Well, he's not going to get any big fights over there. He wasn't getting any big fights over at PBC. So what difference does it make? At least he's going to be active. He's going to be consistent.
He wasn't getting fights. Forget about great fights. I mean, no fights at all.
You know what I mean?
And everything comes back full circle, right? Like, somebody said earlier in the chat, and they're correct, and I think we even mentioned that. They're able to pay Canelo that money because they're basically emptying out most of the war chest for him, right? And it's not leaving them a lot of money for all the other guys like Boots. But if you watch boxing this way, instead of like what I recommend to everybody, stop watching it like you're rooting for a promoter, right? Just watch boxing as a whole. You know what I mean? Just watch it as a whole. Then, of course, PBC's going to get the big names at Canelo right now. It's just that's the position that they're in, right? Crawford, there's a really good chance the next fight's going to be on PBC, right? It is what it is. They're probably going to be the ones that are going to pay him, all right? But if you just watch it from that lens, like all of it's just boxing, guess what? Now you're going to get, like, don't focus on the fact that they're not able to pay Boots Ennis on PBC, because Boots Ennis, he's with Matchroom now, and he's going to get fights. For guys like Boots Ennis, it's actually better to go with Matchroom, right? Because he's going to get them fights. Regis Progress, when he didn't have a promoter, wasn't getting fights. He went with Matchroom. He got dates. He didn't win the fight against Haney, but he got his opportunity to fight Haney, though, right? Boots is going to get an opportunity, in my opinion. He'll probably do a homecoming fight with him, and then he'll probably try to get Boots a big fight. By then, maybe Conor Ben could fight in England or something. Like, you know what I mean? He's going to get him something. There's no doubt in my mind. But when you look at it, it's just boxing. Well, now Boots Ennis is going to be active, right? And if Canelo fights Benavidez later in September, who cares if it's on PBC? We're still getting the fight we want. Right, so you get the best of both worlds when you just look at it from just boxing and not promoters. Like just look at the sport as a
Well,
whole.
boxing has never been a team sport, but once again, people want to recreate the structure of things to suit their own needs, wants, and arguments. So now these so-called fans now have tried to turn boxing into a team sport, and it's not a team sport. It's not. It's not this promoter versus that promoter. Now it's going to be a team sport for one day on June 6th when they have Eddie Hearn versus Frank Warren on the 5-on-5. But other than that, boxing is not a team sport. It's just not.
It's like this, right? Like Eddie Hearn, he signed Paro a couple years ago.
Yep.
Welcome to the team. Welcome to the Matchroom team, right? And then when he signed now, he's gonna take on a Puerto Rico to fight that monster over there, right? And if Paro doesn't win, he gets knocked the fuck out. Is he gonna still be part of Matchroom's team, or is he gonna is Eddie gonna find a way to cut him like he did to Montana Love? Because you're no longer part of the team when the promoters don't have use for these fighters. All of a sudden, they're not part of the team. All of a sudden, they don't need them, right? Like it's just, and that's the boxing world. It's just the way it is, right? That's why I don't get mad. Like when a contract ends, right? When a fighter fulfills his contract, they have every right to go shop around and go with whoever's offering a better deal. They don't owe a loyalty to a promoter and all this other stuff because these promoters ain't loyal, bro. Okay, a lot of these guys get cut as soon as they lose or get knocked out. It's just the way it is.
And what is the sense of calling yourself and becoming a free agent? By definition, being a free agent means you're not loyal. Means you're going to the highest bidder because you're a free agent. You're subcontracting your services.
Yeah, like Matias, another guy. He's gonna, obviously I mentioned he's going to fight Paro. For him, at the moment, I like the Matchroom deal. At the moment, for him, it works for him. But after he's done with his fights, then he should go wherever it makes. If that means going back to PBC, if that means going to Top Rank, whatever that means, right, is what he should do. You know what I mean? And yes, off the ropes. That was Montana Love's second loss in a row, but that's what I'm saying. Like, and they cut him. Like they got rid of him. They gave him his freedom papers, whatever you want to call it, right? They don't want Montana Love anymore. He's no use to Eddie anymore. Right, that's why I don't blame fight when a fighter comes out unscathed, right, and he comes out on top after. Like, I'm all for them negotiating and going to the highest bidder because they get thrown away by these promoters all the time.
And this whole thing about Ramirez and Barboza going over to Golden Boy, and the notion that all of a sudden that's a great move for them, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but. What big fights are they going to get over there that they couldn't have got with Top Rank? Like Teofimo Lopez has one belt, Devin Haney has the other, right? I mean, they got Ryan Garcia. So are they just going over there because they want to fight Ryan Garcia? But is Ryan Garcia going to fight them? See what I'm saying? Like, did they go over there to enter the Ryan Garcia sweepstakes? Both of those guys, and like Ryan's not even a champion. So if he loses to Devin Haney and say that fight doesn't do well on pay-per-view, like you're gambling on a fight with Ryan Garcia, hoping that that's going to be the holy grail for you. And if Ryan Garcia loses again, how much value is in that fight for either man, right? And another thing too, are you going to make any more money fighting Devin Haney for a belt than you would fighting Teofimo Lopez? You can argue probably if maybe Devin Haney's it would be a bigger fight monetarily than Teofimo Lopez, but then you could argue the other way, because if you're fighting Devin Haney, he's got to get a big piece of the pie. How much is going to be left for you? So again, I don't know, that deal, I kind of say to myself, I don't know if that was the best deal for them. But again, maybe I'm wrong and maybe that will play out for them. But they weren't getting big fights over at Top Rank. And Ramirez was offered some big fights, and he actually turned them down. So what are you going to do?
Look, Brock Jarvis was a Australian fighter that was signed by Top I believe anyway, by Matchroom. And as soon as he got knocked out in the first round by Liam Paro, they let him go, right? And he ended up going to no limit. So fighters get cut all the time by
Fighters move.
promoters.
Fighters move around all the time,
Yeah,
and it's not because the promoter's having problems or because the like certain situations just don't work out, right?
certain situations don't work out, or fighters find a better option.
If you're Canelo Alvarez, you have better fights over at PBC than you do over at Matchroom. That if you're a 154 pounder, there's more fights for you over at PBC than there is anywhere else. So you got to go with who has the best stable in your weight division and who has the best fights for you, the biggest fights for you in your weight division. And there's no one size fits all for these fighters. Sorry. And even when Eddie Hearn was doing that 5-on-5 draft with Turki Al Sheikh and Frank Warren, he didn't have the stable to compete with Frank when it came to the heavyweights. Like Frank's got a ton of heavyweights. Eddie Hearn does not. So he actually asked Turki Al Sheikh, "Hey man, can I get someone that's not in my stable? Can you give me a fighter?" And Deontay Wilder's probably going to be on his team, and Zhang's going to be on Warren's team.
How
So
ironic is that?
they had to draft someone from the outside to be on your team because you didn't have enough fighters. And this is not a knock, but again, like it's not a knock, but not everyone is strong in every division. Some promoters are going to be stronger in certain divisions than others. And Eddie's not particularly strong at heavyweight. He's outside of Joshua. Who else does he have? He lost Hergovich.
It's just ironic that like he had to outsource to get Wilder to beat his team.
Looks like it's going to be
Wilder being a
Wilder.
matchless team. I never thought I'd see the day, but here we are.
It looks like it's going to be Wilder on Matchroom's team for the 5-on-5, and that it is kind of funny now that you mention it. It's fucking hilarious.
I just can't believe it from both ends, right? Because they both have said things about each side, and I don't know. It's just crazy to me, but like I don't know, man. You're kind of outsourcing here to compete with Queensberry, man. I don't know. Like it's like too Yankee-ish to me, Like, it reminds me of the New York Yankees a little bit.
Frank's got a decent stable of light heavyweights, got a decent stable of middleweights, right? Eddie's pretty strong in the lower weight classes, but I don't know, man. I
Is
like
Better
Eddie.
Be Bivol gonna be like part of that? Is Top Rank alone now Queensberry? Or?
No, I don't think it's going to be part of that. It may be part of that. I'm not sure. I don't think it is.
Because if he doesn't have Bivol, who the hell does he have at 175?
Does he have Craig Rich? Who has Craig Richards?
Oh, I don't even know that's Queensberry or Matchroom.
Yeah, someone help me out in the chat. Who has Craig Richards? Because I can't remember who has Craig Richards. I'm not sure if it's Matchroom or if it's Queensberry who has.
Look, I'll tell you where he has the advantage. The women fighters are women going to be in the 5?
No,
no women fighting.
But even Top Rank, they got Sinisa Estrada now. They got Michaela Mayer, and then they're fighting.
Caleb Smith.
Yeah, he's got Caleb Smith at light heavyweight, and Frank's got like Anthony Yard.
That's a good fight. Anthony Yard, Caleb Smith.
Yeah, so that'd be a good fight. I'm hoping that's one of the fights. Anthony Yard.
Who wins that fight?
I think Anthony Yard beats Caleb Smith, but I could be wrong. I think Anthony Yard beats him though.
That power is going to be he's going to be dangerous for the first half of the fight.
I liked how Anthony Yard looked against Better Beef. I thought he was. I think I had him up in the fight, or maybe I think I had him like maybe a slightly behind at the time of the stoppage, or I can't. I have to go back and look at my card, but that fight was really competitive. Yeah, Craig Richards is with Matchroom. Thank you, Alexander Wilson. I thought he was.
He hit him with a really. Well, I don't want to start controversies in the streets, but I think Anthony Yard, for a brief second, heard Better Beef.
I thought he heard him too. But some people don't want to admit it. But he heard him. He buzzed him. He busted him up a little bit.
Better Beef's recovery was amazing, and he recovered right away. But he did buzz him.
Yeah, he did. So what the fuck's going on tonight? Let's look at the schedule tonight, man, real quick, and see if anything's worthwhile. I guess this Jordan Gill versus Zelfa Barrett. That's a decent card on the zone. But again, it's not going to move the needle here in the States. Jared
Yeah.
Anderson. Jared Anderson's fighting. We already talked about this on Thursday.
Yeah, and here, I just want to say this. So, and I just want to make sure people understand. I'm not the biggest PBC fan. Like, I'm not, right? However, like, I'm not gonna act like only PBC does certain things. So, like the undercard. You mentioned the undercard of Canelo Munguia, right?
I'm not crazy about
And
that.
people make great points. Like why not just do? You look at the fights and you're like, why not just do Barrios? And Stanionis. Like,
You have enough
they're in the
decent
same
fighters on that card, like you just said, to make good matchups.
100%, right? Now, I actually don't hate the matches, to be honest. I think they're good fights. I think they're going to be fun to watch. I'm not saying they're the best either, but but I do agree. Somebody tells me, well, you're already paying Stanionis and Barrios. They're on the same card. They might as well just fight each other. And I think that Maidana, and you have their opponents, Maestro and Maidana, fight each other. And that'll probably be a fun fight too. You just got to mix and match them a little better. And I get that 100%. But Top Rank is doing that this Saturday, bro, or tonight. Like, why can't we just get Efe Japa against freaking Anderson already? Why are they like? They've been teasing this fight to us for I don't know how long, like, as if it's this big monster event. Like, that should be the fight. Efe Japa versus Jared Anderson, and I'm excited for that fight tonight, bro. But that's not what they're giving us. It's weird to me. I mean, might as well just make that damn fight.
Yeah.
So Top Rank does this shit too. They're doing it tonight.
I agree.
We got two predictable fights. Like I don't know. Like how would your feeling be if Efe Jagba was fighting Jared Anderson tonight?
I think it would be
What's your feeling?
I think I'd be much more excited for the card. I think I'd be much more. I think it'd be a much more anticipated fight, more intriguing.
And then they have this poster, right? They got this poster that is so misleading. It has Efe Jagba and Anderson next to each other. When I first saw the poster, right, I was like, "Oh shit, that's a great fight." And then you look at it a second later. Oh, it's Jared Anderson versus this dude, Jabba versus this guy. They're not really fighting each other.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. I just look at that and I say, I'm not a fan of that, right? And I know Maestro said in the chat, well, they won't fight each other, both James Prince fighters. Okay, but they could give us better fights. Like my point is, PBC ain't the only ones that do this shit, right? Like, I'm sure there's a good reason that they have why Stanionis isn't fighting Mario Barrios. I'm sure there's a reason for that, but it's whatever to me. But what are you gonna do?
Yeah. So does the future look bright here for boxing? We're just completed the first quarter. I went over the schedule. Top Rank's done some good things. Matchroom's done some okay things. PBC just hasn't really got out of the gate, right? But overall, we got Fury versus Usyk. We got Benavidez versus Bivol. So those are two big fights. Garcia versus Haney. I mean, I'm going to watch it, but it's a predictable outcome to me. I hope I'm wrong. But unless something extraordinary happens in that fight, I think that's going to be a lackluster fight. Lomachenko versus Kambosos. Predictable outcome, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, we have two great fights, but there's nothing that jumps out at me other than those two big fights. Trying to think.
I
Oh,
think,
Bam
yeah.
versus Estrada. I mean, to me, that's a predictable outcome as well, too. But Bam is the name.
Yeah, but
So
it is a goof. It's like there could be fights that are predictable to us, but there's still like the right fight and a good fight. You know what I mean? And to me, I think most of us agree that Bam's going to win, but it's the right fight to make, and it's a good fight. Like it's my opinion, but we'll see. I mean, Gallo is still he's got something to prove in that fight. So we're gonna see. But I've been wrong before about fights, so
I guess overall, it's been a solid year. And then you're going to have two undisputed fights. Then I think Zoo versus Fondora was a better fight than anticipated. I know I'm pretty sour on him fighting with that cut, but if Crawford comes back and fight, I mean, what's Crawford gonna do? Because I
I
mean,
don't
if
even
we get
know.
a if we get a Zoo Fondora rematch, that's another good fight. Um, Neri versus Inoue, it's another predictable outcome.
I
Uh,
just the problem with Crawford for me is like I don't know, man. I just don't. We might end up seeing a damn rematch again, to be honest with you, with
yeah,
Spence.
that could happen too.
And they'll just do the whole like, well, Spence wasn't 100% and 154, and like you know what I mean? Like they're gonna go with that, and it's gonna be fans that are gonna buy it. To be honest with you, like they're gonna say, okay, yeah, I don't think he was the same. And if you want me to be honest with you, I don't think Spence was 100% in that fight.
Yeah, and
I'm not
even
saying it's Crawford's fault, but I'm just saying
yeah, even if he is 100%, I still don't pick
doesn't
him.
matter.
But not being 100% made it that much worse. Made the beating even more devastating, in my opinion.
Like Spence should have performed better than like Benavidez did against Crawford. Like he should have performed better than you know a lot of these guys performed against Crawford. Quite frankly, like Mean Machine, he should have performed better than those guys, and he didn't. So I still think Crawford would have beat him. I think it would have still been decisive, right? But the way Crawford made him look like he didn't even belong in the ring with him,
Yeah,
and I think that happened because he wasn't 100%.
I don't think it was 100% either. I really don't.
So,
I think it
and I
was.
know people are gonna say, "Oh, don't make excuses." I'm not making excuses for anybody. I'm just telling you what I honestly feel.
Let's talk about this Usyk Fury situation and that
Mm.
press conference. It was, it was kind of weird that they just did that impromptu press conference and it was just Fury there and not Usyk. It was almost like Fury had a lot of positive energy and he looked like he was in really good spirits, looked like he was in really good shape. Looked like he was focused. He's leaving to go to Saudi right now. He's going to be training in Saudi. So he's going to get acclimated there. Seems like he's doing everything right. But people are like, well, why did he do that press conference? People think he was going to pull out of the fight. People questioning a lot of things about Fury, and as well they should, based off of what we saw in that Ngannou fight. I get it, but I just think that Fury's in really good spirits. I think this is going to be the best version of Fury that he could put forth, in my opinion. And I looked at pictures of Usyk. Usyk looks like he's bulking up. So one guy's actually shedding weight, another guy's putting on weight. So the roles are going to be somewhat reversed there. Usyk's trying to bring a little bit of a power game to this fight. It seems. It seems like he's going to have to. He's preparing himself to have to be strong and sturdy on the inside in the clinches. And Fury is getting some weight off him so he can keep up with Usyk. And if he has to
See,
try to catch him and move more than he wants to, then or just overall, he wants to not have to carry all that weight throughout the course of the 12-round fight. So it's very interesting looking at
it's
that.
fascinating.
Yeah. But one thing that's really telling here is they keep talking about Fury versus Joshua. And you heard Turkey Al Sheikh. I don't know if you saw the whole thing, but at the end, he got on the phone and he was speaking, and they put the phone near the microphone so everyone could hear what he said. And he's sitting there saying, well, you know that I have a special place in my heart for you, Fury. I don't pay anyone as much as I pay you. It almost looks like I hate saying this, but the promotion is heavily tilted towards Fury. Like he's really like being pushed as the A-side fighter here. And the guy who's funding the event and paying both fighters is openly rooting for one of the fighters, right? He goes, you know, and he's sitting there like watching the guy in training camp, like going out of his way to try to make sure Fury wins this fight, saying, "Oh, I want to promote your next 10 fights." Like he's so heavily invested in Fury, and although he's not downplaying Usyk, he's really just not giving that same love for Usyk. So it's funny to me. Like, let me ask you this: are they gonna like make sure that they're gonna have they're gonna have the right ref? Are they gonna make sure that they have this certain specific judges? Like, are they gonna tilt this whole thing in Fury's favor? In your opinion?
I mean, and now that you're putting it that way, I mean, I actually don't. I don't. Do I think he wants Fury to win? Do I think he's maybe Fury's his favorite to some degree, especially with the heavyweights? Yes, but I just don't. I don't think powers to be. I don't think people in positions of power. I'm not saying they can't influence judges. I'm not saying they can't influence. And there's a difference. Influence and controlling are two different things. I just don't. And I know people are going to think I'm crazy here, but I just don't think, and this, just for lack of a better term, a promoter could control what judges do, like to that degree. I just don't. Like, do I think the same judges keep getting hired for a reason, and there's like this unspoken kind of understanding that certain judges have with certain promoters? Yes.
There's a lot of A-side bias, whether it be subconscious or intentional, that the judges have, in my opinion, when they're scoring these fights.
I just don't think there's any envelopes being handed over.
No.
You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying.
I don't think it's as nefarious as some people think. Like Teddy Atlas will accuse fighters of having the scorecards filled out before the fight even starts, and he's like accuses fighters of backloading like cards. And I just think in a close round, there's this unwritten rule that the A-side fighter will get the nod in a close round.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that, because for years, you know, I always heard this growing up. Like, I even believed there was a scoring method when I was growing up. Like this whole, like, you got to take it from the champion. Like, you know what I mean? You can't just edge it out. You got to take it from him. Like, you got to dominate the round in order to beat the champion in that round, right?
Yeah.
But that's not even a scoring criteria. But, you know, it goes back with the understanding, like now it's the A-side thing, right? But before it was with the champion. So it was just understood by people like, hey, if you go to that dude's hometown, you got to do more because they're going to basically give him the benefit of the doubt. If you fight the champion, they've got to do more, man, because they're going to give him the benefit of the doubt. It was never part of the scoring. It was just the away fighter or the B-side or the challenger basically kind of acknowledging, fair or unfair, in my opinion, unfair, that we got to just do more than necessary in order to win these rounds and win this fight, right? But it was never part of the scoring criteria. It's just funny how that morphed and kind of evolved into fans scoring it that way and having arguments with me like, no, he should have won because he's a champion. You got to take it from the champion. Like, no, that's not how you score, right? But with that aside, I don't think they're going to like the Saudis don't benefit at all from grossly rigging something. Because it would just, like, they want fighters to feel comfortable going to Saudi Arabia. What's more important to them is not who wins or loses. What's important to them is getting big events over there. And they're not going to entice anybody to go, or they're going to have a harder time enticing people to go over there if the perception is, yeah, you go over there, they're going to screw you over. You go over there, they have favorites. You go over there, they're going to spike your water. They're going to do this. They're going to do like they're not going to. Then I don't think they're going to go out of their way to screw anybody over. I just don't. It is what it is. You know what I mean?
Do you think Luis Pabon will be the referee in that fight? That's the referee that refed the Dubois fight.
No.
Do you think he gets the assignment?
I don't think he gets the assignment. And you know what? In fairness, I don't even look at that, Joe, as like, they're screwing him over by not letting that. No. To me, it's like that guy's too biased towards Usyk to be a ref, quite frankly. I don't think now they get a ref that's allows a little bit of the grappling and the clinch fighting, and probably, right? They probably will do that. I don't think they should, but that's not against the rules either. But I think what you're trying to say is like Turkey Al-Sheikh's not going to go out of his way to get the ref that benefits Usyk. You know what I mean? Like, at best for Usyk, he's going to get someone neutral, or he's going to get somebody more likely that's going to be more favorable to Fury's style.
And then you're going to have someone like for instance, let's talk about how those pre-fight instructions are going to be, and talk like Fury's team's going to be like, yeah, we got to establish where the belt line is. You got to let me know what I can do and what I can't do. And here's the thing too, man. Fury's got to be very careful, right? Not to stop. Like, what the problem I think fighters make is when Usyk does that complaining routine, when anyone hits him remotely near that area, and it's almost like he's flopping, he's overselling it, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. When he tries to oversell it, don't buy into it. Stay on top of him. Don't pause and be like, what the fuck is he doing? Go right, because if you continue to fight and you don't stop or pause, then the referee won't look at it more closely like there's something wrong. So don't give that referee ammunition to use against you by taking the bait for these flops or him trying to oversell something, right? So if he does that, Fury lands a belt line shot and he decides to go through that routine, Fury got to just follow up and stay on top of him and not back off him like Joshua did and like Dubois did. Well, Dubois didn't back off. I mean, he just went down and the ref just was like, whatever. So, but Joshua backed off him. I don't think even Bellew backed off him too, and Bellew landed a belt line shot. But
it's happened several times in some cruiserweight fights. It happened against Joshua, like you just mentioned. That was the most noticeable one because I think Joshua might have had him like really like. Yeah, maybe not as hard as Dubois did, but if he would have jumped on him, who knows what happens?
So don't let the referee. Don't give the referee time to think about, is that a foul or is it not? You know what I'm saying? Because when you pause like that and you allow him to go through his routine, don't allow him to go through the full routine. Once he starts trying to go through the routine, kill that right off the bat. You know what I mean? Because he's going to try it. He's done it in a lot of his fights, and there's no reason for me to believe he probably won't try it here. And this whole notion, since when has Fury been a body puncher? Go back and watch the Chisora fights. Go back and watch the second Wilder fight when he actually knocked him down with a body shot. Let's not act like Fury can't throw body shots here, and let's not act like he can't. Let's not act like he can't implement that as part of his game plan in this fight. Let's not act like that.
It's interesting you mentioned, and this is what I personally love about the heavyweight division. You could kind of, not always, right, but you could kind of read strategy based off of their weight, how they're looking. That's why I look forward to the weigh-ins for heavyweight fights, because it kind of gives you an idea what they're planning to do, and it was always historically heavyweight's always been like that. Like I remember when HBO would air the heavyweight weigh-ins, and they would have Lennox Lewis there to analyze the scale, and they would ask him, "Hey, well, why did David Haye come in a little lighter than he usually does against Klitschko?" And he kind of explained, "Well, I think he's going to try to use his speed to his advantage, and he's going to try to maybe work the ring, well, whatever it is, right?" So you really don't get this with the other weight classes. So you don't at the other weight classes, the guys are just cutting weight, hitting the scale, right? And then we don't even know what they weigh on fight night, quite frankly,
Well,
right?
this is the only weight class where both fighters don't have to weigh in and be the same weight. So obviously,
Yeah,
and I think you talk about this a lot. It means more. The weigh-in means more at heavyweight than it does in the other
100%.
weight classes because it's the only division where you can effectively have a weight advantage.
You could have a weight advantage, but you can also assess like what a fighter's strategy is going to be. So if
Correct.
Fury's coming lighter than he usually is, right? If he's the lightest he's been in years, and you already mentioned it, it looks like he wants to keep up with the pace, maybe add a little bit of speed, and because he has enough power. I don't think he really needs to add power like against Usyk. Like I think he needs to add speed. Like, you know what I mean? So I just think, and then Usyk putting on muscle and all that. If he's bulking up, then it tells us, okay, he's trying to put some meat on so he can kind of keep up with the clinch against Fury. And then it makes us analyze it even more. Like, is that even smart? Like, should he be involved in a clinch fight with Fury to begin with?
Well,
right?
if you go back to the Dillian White fight, and this is the fight where everyone was like, "Oh, Dillian White's gonna not," like a lot of the Fury people who don't like Fury were anticipating him getting into a slugfest with Dillian White, very similar to what he did in the third Wilder fight, which and it didn't happen, right? So he comes in at 264, much lighter than the 277 he came in for the third Wilder fight, right?
Yeah.
And you saw that he boxed a little bit more from the outside. You know, he used a little bit more movement. So if we get but he still mixed it up and held his ground when he had to. So you got a multi-layered Fury in that fight, in my opinion. You got a Fury who was counter-punching well as well. Got a Fury who was using his jab and was using a lot more outside boxing, more so than he did against Wilder the second two fights. If we get that version of Fury, that 264-pound version of Fury, against the Daniel Dubois version of Usyk, I think Fury's going to have some major success in that fight. But once again, that's an if. That's an if.
I mean,
so, and then you have to. It's hard to dismiss that Ngannou fight, but
yeah, that was bad.
I just find myself saying to myself, "There's no way that's the best of Fury." Like I can't. Logic will not allow me to accept that that's the word. I mean, and again, I could be totally off the mark here, but
I got to be honest, Joe. That fight, it fucked with a lot of people's heads.
Yeah,
like it really did. Like it fucked with people's heads. It had people believing, hey, maybe these MMA guys are at par. Maybe they can come in and take over boxing. Like it had people thinking shit like that. It was the craziest thing ever. It was bizarre. Like, yeah, people believing that Ngannou can, like, yeah, guys like Joe Rogan coming out here saying he can knock out every heavyweight. And for the first time, like, it was like, it was hard to argue with him because of the performance he put on against who many consider the best heavyweight on the planet in Tyson Fury. He knocked down Tyson Fury. Some people felt he won the fight.
I thought he won the fight.
I would go as far as to say most people feel he won the fight. I wouldn't go that far.
I thought he eked it out. As sick as that may sound.
When you scored it for Ngannou. You know what you saw, but even when you say it, doesn't it still feel unbelievable to say it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like does it feel surreal? Like it feels surreal to me to even think about that. Yeah. I cannot explain to people how monumental of a horrible performance that was. I mean, I don't know. There was times where I was like, did Fury forget to box? Like what's the fuck is going on here? Right? His timing wasn't there. There was like the only punch that looked decent was the jab, and that's about it. And even then, he didn't. It was just that performance was so bad that of course it has me questioning how he's going to look against Usyk. I have no choice because that's how bad that performance was.
Yeah.
And after seeing what Joshua did, it's like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
It's unbelievably crazy.
Who are you picking, by the way? If you had a bet right now, someone put a gun to your head, who do you think's going to win that fight?
At the moment, I am favoring Usyk by decision.
Okay.
I am. Yeah. I agree with the odds makers' odds actually. Like I have it like that close, and I'm slightly favoring Usyk.
But you're not overconfident with your pick.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, Ngannou Fury could easily just be an anomaly. It could easily just be like an outlier. It could easily be the stars just aligned. Like if we look at it, no one knew how the fucking Ngannou boxed because we never saw him in a boxing match, right? I think Usyk grossly underestimated him, and it's hard to blame him because I mean, I just think I honestly think he thought, and I thought this too, he could come out of the couch and just knock this guy out. Like maybe I shouldn't think that way, but he shouldn't have thought that way though. He should have come in shape.
Like, I don't think Fury believed that there was danger in that fight. There was any danger. There was any danger of losing, and I think he needs to have that in him that there could be a danger. There is a possibility. There was no possibility in his mind that he could have lost that fight. There was no. I don't think he sensed a threat.
I couldn't imagine Ngannou beating any top 25 heavyweight on the planet. I couldn't even imagine that. So, like, for him to fight Fury, I was like, okay.
When Joshua did what he did to him, the look on his face was like, what the fuck just happened? He was in disbelief of what happened in that fight. He really was.
I think I told you on the phone. I said, before the fight, Fury's on the mic, bro, and he's like, "So how do you think this fight's gonna go?" And Ariel Helwani asked him, Josh is gonna knock him out in the first round. And I was like, "You've been talking about how it's gonna be a tough fight for AJ. It's the toughest fight of your career." Like he was talking up Ngannou, and then when the moment came, the fight's about to happen. When now there's no chance the fight's gonna get canceled or about to walk out. Oh, he's gonna knock him out in the first round.
And he believed it too. He believed it.
And I go, motherfucker.
He believed it.
I was like, you motherfucker, like you know you fucked up that night, didn't you? Like you know what I mean? Like you dropped, like that was a major fumble right there.
Yeah.
Because look, I'll tell you right now, but there isn't a heavyweight in the top 25. Not one. Forget Ngannou. I don't think Fury could come in shape like that and win that fight against any top 25 heavyweight. I just don't. I don't think he beats Hergovich that way. I don't think he beats Jared Anderson that way. I don't think he beats anybody in that gross condition. I just don't. He was in that bad a shape, bro. And people could tell me all day, "Oh, when has Fury been in shape?" No, bro. He looked like like Dana said, he looked like he ate Tyson Fury. That guy, I don't think he had a training camp, bro. I think he was out there indulging himself over there. Like he saw it as a vacation. And he wouldn't be the only one. Like I still remember when Paulie said, like the night before the McGregor fight, like that whole week, like Mayweather was partying like all night, because that's what they just figured. There's no danger here. I'm not gonna lose this fight. This guy can't fuck with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just think the stars aligned. You know what I mean? That night, like all these, a bunch of things that shouldn't have happened all happened all at the same time, and we got what we got. You know what I mean?
We're about
Like I gave you this example. Like I said, Usain Bolt in his prime, right? Fastest 100 and 200 meter, right? He could outrun, let's say, Randy Moss, right? Randy Moss, very fast wide receiver. But if Randy Moss trained, like if he was going to have a 100-meter race against Usain Bolt, we all know he's not going to be Usain Bolt. Like that's just our assumption. Like, there ain't no way he's going to be Usain Bolt, even if Usain Bolt doesn't have his best run time. But if Usain Bolt is indulging himself, he's gaining weight, he's not training, he's not taking it serious. He comes in 20 pounds heavier than he normally does. He's got a gut. He's got love handles. And he's about to do a 100-meter race against Randy Moss. Would it shock you if he just edges it out? Or Randy Moss beats him in a 100-meter? It wouldn't shock me.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what happened here. Like Fury didn't take it serious, and he indulged himself. And he looked. I never seen Fury tired after 3 rounds of boxing, bro, in my life.
No, he looked like he was a little bit spent, and it's just a bad overall look, man. There's no question about it. There's no question about it. He didn't look good at all.
But credit to your co-host Eric. I still think he should have came out of the couch and knocked him out. I just do.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck happened because it was more than that. This was a series of things. It wasn't even just that. So is he shot? Is he done? I don't know.
It's gonna be a big question that's gonna be answered on that day. It really is. So, all right, I think that's about it, man. It's not much more to talk about. We pretty much covered it all.
Sure.
See you guys later. Thank you for jumping on. Thank you, everyone in the chat. We will catch up with you guys later. Have a good one.